Welcome back to another episode of Psycosmos. Today I got Briona, and she is going to share some of her interests and a little bit more about herself. Stay tuned for more. So, Briona, thank you so much for joining. Why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about yourself and what you're into for everybody?
Yeah, so my name is Briona Jolie. I have been a spiritual teacher, a channel, and a couple of other things for a few years now. I made a tarot deck back in 2020 that integrates wolf medicine with earth medicine. So that deck actually tells a lot about what I enjoy and what I love, anything spiritual that has to do with earth, animals, connecting to nature, connecting to kind of a primal essence of ourself and our soul.
Love that. Love that. Actually, could you give us some more information on like earth medicine? Because I'm really big into like homeopathic and natural remedies myself. So like I'd love to hear more about like what kind of stuff that you're really into in regards to that. And I love the wolves and all the wolf iconography in the background. It's like super cool. Wolves are one of my favorite animals. So I dig it. Oh yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, they're such a special animal. So actually, I am currently on the shamanic path. I am completing my shamanic apprenticeship next month, actually, which has been a year long of training with both a Celtic and Norse shaman. What's important to shamanism and what's important to just that path in general is a connection and not only just a connection but a relationship with the elements. So when I work with the elements or when I work with the earth, it is based on that relationship. So they're involved within every ceremony, every ritual, connectedness to my own body, which carries all the elements, and basically really everything in our world and our universe is connected to that. So it's kind of um, that ancient source of magic and life force, which I personally like to connect to in that way.
I
Hmm.
love that. That's actually super cool. I would love to hear more about your journey with like the shamanistic practices. I'm definitely not certified by any means, but I oftentimes, just through my own spiritual work, I consider myself a total amateur spiritual healer or total
Hmm.
amateur shaman with like no certifications. But I actually have had plenty of people come to me where I have done like psilocybic kind of rituals or even DMT. I've done once before where I've done a ritual for that, and I've had nothing but positive feedback. People actually come to me asking for my advice and guidance on those things, which I'm like, okay, sure, people just kind of get a vibe. So I'd love to hear more about like what that entailed over the last year, how you got involved with that. If anybody would like to know more about how to get involved with those types of spiritual practices and healing, because I find I find shamanistic. I mean, this is kind of a bold statement, but I'm just going to say it. I feel as though shamanistic and spiritual healers oftentimes, from my experience of working with them compared to standard doctors, and that doesn't mean all doctors, but the majority of the generalized idea of what doctors are in a Western society, I feel like there are more people who could probably benefit from energetic and shamanistic type spiritual healers rather than the mediocre doctors that go to school and they learn the crap that has not progressed for like the last 80 years, right? So I would love to hear more about your experience with that, how you got involved, and really just kind of what led you, if there's any types of memories or experiences that kind of led you to that path.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you more about the story. And I totally agree with you. I think if anything, it's important to at least have access to both in your life. With respect to, I have a best friend who's a doctor, and then I'm on the shamanic path, and I can both see both of our paths being for healing. But for if one healer doesn't work, then the other one's available, and they're both pretty high in their studies and in their
Very true.
dedication.
Very true.
Um, so I got on the shamanic path. Well, the shamanic path is a calling. You feel called, um, most likely by your spirit guides, to take that path. It is a way of life or a lifestyle. So This medicine is also passed down by teachers to become a shaman or even just a shamanic practitioner. This is wisdom passed by elders who got taught by elders who got taught by elders. And after feeling the calling, I learned who my teachers would be by just kind of listening, letting them stand out, doing some research. Thankfully, I actually had a friend who was already on the path, and I really aligned with her teachers. So this whole year has been a really intense training. When it comes to going on the shamanic path, you do experience like a death. The first thing they have us do, without going into too much detail or sharing too much, is we plan our funeral. So that
Wow.
kind of shows you the stakes or the intensity, the seriousness of how much are we willing to let go of our ego to know who our soul is, to get rid of bias,
Yeah.
and just to kind of to have a clear slate so that we can really receive and understand what our medicine was. So yeah, this whole journey has just been a journey of understanding what our medicine is, understanding and learning these tools that have been passed down. I find it really important for anyone who feels called to go on this path, to find teachers who have similar ancestry to you. So that's why I'm specifically learning from a Norse and Celtic
That
shaman.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, although that's kind of rare. Typically, shamans don't work together, but in this case, I was really lucky to find two that work together. We've done practices on this land, but we've also traveled to Ireland to do training there,
Nice.
sacred sites. And yeah, so all that combined, a lot of work with our spirit guides, learning to journey, which is probably the most important tool that a shaman uses, which is basically learning how to go into spirit world, do work that impacts this physical reality, and come back. So yeah, it's been incredible, to say the least. And I've even like looked at pictures of myself from right before I started that apprenticeship, which was February of last year. And I look similar, but I also look very different. And I'm also very different.
Mm.
So yeah, very unique and special experience for sure. Not for the faint of heart.
I could definitely imagine. Yeah, you actually, I love how when you talk about it, you have a very nice glow about you. It's like this is something that I can definitely tell just from my own experimenting with energies. Like you're definitely on this path that you know is something that's super important to you. It's like a soul's purpose or mission. So,
Mm.
and when you talk about it, yeah, you definitely really are enjoying what you're doing. So, I'm thankful that we have people like you who actually want to learn all of these ancient traditions because there's a lot of wisdom from our ancestors that either doesn't get fully passed down or doesn't get well integrated into our modern medical system. And I couldn't agree more. You know, I also have friends who are doctors as well, and they depending on where they are kind of in their spiritual slash career journey. Some doctors are they're very set in the modern way of practicing, and some are actually starting to integrate more homeopathic or energetic remedies for people because a lot of diseases are caused by energetic imbalances, and I think most of society is kind of unaware of that. And
Right.
I think that over the last few years we've really seen how energy has impacted people and to what degree people are exposed to it and how it can harm them. So, very well said. I'm very happy to hear that this is something that you really enjoy, and it also sounds like something that I personally believe more people should get involved with.
Mhm.
And so, how does one get involved in something like this? You don't have to share your specific teachers, but like how would somebody, if they wanted to get on this path, start and get involved with that?
Yeah, so I would first say use your discernment to know if that calling feels true. You can always discern, is this like my ego? Like, do I need this title for a certain reason, or is this where my soul is calling me next to grow and to learn?
Mm-hmm.
Um, finding teachers that you align with. Again, using, I'm going to say discernment a lot
That's fine. That's a good
because,
word.
yeah, there's a broad range of shamans, and some work with the light and some work with the dark. We'll just say
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So, having clear discernment of the teachers that you want to work with, making sure that you or your guides are really vetting them. And then with me, there was a application process, pretty lengthy actually, and then a physical meeting, and then even my teachers spoke to their guides, casted runes to be able to tell if I was ready to come on the path.
That's awesome.
Thankfully, the runes said yes,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
was invited in and began my journey with a clan. So I'm with a group of people. That's typically the case as you learn alongside other people. I find it's really great to, if someone makes a mistake or like we do something kind of off in journey space, we can learn from one another and it's no big deal. And I've had a friend that has done it completely solo,
Mm.
totally different experience, but it's just kind of what was called, what was needed at the time. Some apprenticeships go for a year. I'd say that's the minimal length, unless you're doing one to one. Because my friend, she did about 9 months because she was doing that much of intensity of a class. And then some expand outward of a year. Basically, what happens after a year is after our teachers kind of watch us again, continue to get guidance from their own guides on, how we're doing. They suggest to us if we're ready to kind of move on and kind of walk out as a quote unquote shaman or a practitioner. You don't have to become a shaman after doing an apprenticeship. It could just be learning and yielding the practices. Or maybe you learn on that journey that it's not your path too. So I would say for anyone also feeling called or starting that to be very humble and be very open to wherever that leads you.
Mm.
Um, there's no necessarily like goal that you really should keep in mind because it will probably be obliterated by your ego.
Mm. Yeah, I love what you said too because ego is one of those things that I've found just in helping people. You know, we go to expos here in our area, and we've probably at this point helped like directly we in person. We've probably helped a couple hundred people. Online at this point it's in the millions just because of all the views that we get and the a lot of the information that we're able to share, a lot of healing. And what I found is that ego is definitely one of those big things that is very difficult for most people to conquer. And it doesn't mean that I don't have an ego or other people around me don't have egos, but mainly it's just understanding how to keep that ego in check and really like ego death was a big thing for me. I experienced that probably about 8 years ago. I talk about this a lot. I accidentally not really accidentally, but it kind of was a whole microcosmic circumstances of synchronicities that kind of just all aligned, and I ended up doing DMT somehow, and I had a very powerful experience, like an ayahuasca trip, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like a 20-year-old college kid. I was just being stupid, but through that experience, I had this very intense experience, and I don't like recommend psychedelics to people. I think that there is a time and place, and it's like as you have been saying, it's a calling. So I definitely actually don't recommend doing them because I know plenty of people who have really suffered from doing those things. But for me, I was going through a lot of trauma, and it was something that kind of really brought me out of that and brought me onto my own spiritual path, which is where I am today, kind of fixating and working towards a greater purpose alongside my team and a ton of other people, and we've garnered a bunch of support, but it all kind of started from within, and I think that it was a conquering of ego, a conquering of my experiences, my negativity, even the naivety of some of my positive aspects. You know, it was really coming into that middle path and finding who I really was. And what I discovered was that I'm a healer. I'm somebody who's supposed to go out and assist the world in changing for the better, not just generationally, but just individually. So that was like something that really powerfully resonated with me. Not like I don't care about this physical existence because like everybody else, this physical existence is just going to wither away. But it's really the what resonates with my soul. I know my soul is here for an extremely powerful purpose. So it's all about tapping into that and finding those types of callings. And then I've been able to manifest through that emotional feeling of understanding all of the hardships that I went through were not there to make me prop myself up in an egotistical manner. I was actually there as a way to prop up other people in a non-egotistical way, in a very unconditionally loving way. And I think that love is something that is so powerful. It drives the fundamentals of, you know, people will call it quantum physics or whatever they'll call it, but love really is like this energy that connects all of us, that allows us to connect and be who we are. So yeah, very well said. I just wanted to share my 2 cents with that. But yeah, absolutely agree with everything you said, and I love that there, like I said before, I love that there are people who are really getting more involved with these types of practices. Are there any like maybe things that you could share with us? Any major takeaways or any advice that you even have for people who might be sad or they might be on kind of like a little lost path right now? Anything that you want to share, it doesn't really matter. Whatever has really resonated with you, I'd love to just kind of open up the floor and have you kind of discuss what you enjoy and what helps you through doing all these things and healing other people.
Yeah. So, I would say one of the most important takeaways is learning how to do nothing. That's one of actually the first things that we learn and practice is learning to be in the background. You can be a healer and or assist other people with their healing by simply holding space. The savior complex that I feel like a lot of people who've grown into healers had that growing up.
Yeah.
I was kind of like the first, but kind of toxic or unbalanced way of going about it. Um, it's a way of supporting yourself so that you can support other people tenfold,
Hmm.
more than you could ever have done if you kind of acted impulsively on helping somebody.
Yeah,
So
I
I'd
really
say,
resonate with that. No, I don't want to cut you off because you're on a great roll. I really resonate with that. That was something that I had to learn myself, and it was very difficult for me to learn.
right.
So yeah, please continue. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, holding space, working in the background, doing nothing. And then I'd say one that often gets overlooked is grounding. Especially if you're working with spirit, especially if you're working with the cosmic plane, especially if you're working with magic of any kind, grounding, 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 grounding. Yeah, don't get too ahead of yourself. It's really important to go slow, be present, be careful with all those things. And really, and I'd say that like the biggest key of or like almost like the root of all the medicine, all the practices. These are really like the roots, the foundations of all of these practices that I've learned. Is just to know thyself.
Hmm.
Know thyself, know thyself. Um, know your weakness as much as you know your strength. Both of those can tell you what your medicine is. Um, and your medicine and how you share it uniquely to you, or how it's been passed down through your lineage, or how you've taught yourself, is really important facet of your magic. And simply what that is something that provides love, that provides healing in the face of challenge. And also, I would say, although it's really important to be a healer and to be gentle and to be kind and to be loving, it is equally as important if you're on a path like this, or I'd say just for any healer, is to also understand who your warrior is. A shaman is both. They're not just the healer, they're not just the love. They're not just the giver. They know their boundaries. They know what lines, are crossed. They know how to fiercely protect themselves, but also fiercely protect others because sometimes that's what's needed. Um, with certain forces, spirit, mankind, show us how a little bit of a stronger, tougher medicine is needed, and that's our warrior side. So I'd say a combination of all of those are the roots or the foundations to pretty much any practice that I've learned or that's been passed down to me.
Yeah, very well said there. I mean, just to touch on a couple of things, the grounding. That's something that I've recommended to a lot of people, and I know that that really helps people. And when it comes to on our channel, we have a lot of videos that are kind of coupled in with manifestation and energy work and things like that. And one of the things I get as far as a question all the time is, how do I manifest money? And
Mm,
when I talk with people, a lot of the time I find that the energy is residing in their bodies. Because I'm really big into understanding energy in the body.
mm,
I find that when I understand their lifestyles and all these things, they have all this energy high up here, and they're like,
mm,
I'm high vibrational. Why can't I manifest anything? Well, and I tell them, well, because you're not grounding, because you have to come back down. The whole body is a circuit, and it has to ebb and flow like a cycle, just like anything else is a spiral or a cycle as far as
mm,
energy works. Whether you're looking at DNA or if you're looking at galaxies, it doesn't matter. Hurricanes, even, everything is cyclical. Just as the sun comes up and it goes down and it comes up again, it's all cyclical. So people understanding how they can manipulate those energies in a way that's very positive for them, where they can ground, they can bring that energy down, and it can be refurbished and come back up. And it's really cyclical. So one of the big things I always get asked is, how do I manifest money? And that's what I try to tell people. And grounding is one of those aspects where, especially for spiritual people, most people who are kind of locked in to this physical reality, and they're not spiritual, or they're atheistic, or they're eating the fast food and they're doing all the nonsensical habits, and then they wonder why they're miserable. They're really like, they're already super grounded, low level. Like, there's not a lot of energy that's really moving or fluctuating, and this is why people become diseased, and they have mental instabilities of some kind, etc. But what I found is, most people who are trying to become spiritual, they get a taste of that energy rising up the spinal column into the heart, into the brain, and then they want to live there. But the reality is that it's got to be a perpetual cycle, and there are ways to lower your vibe without doing harm to yourself, and grounding is the best way to do that. So I couldn't agree more on the grounding aspect. I feel as though it's one of those things that people are neglecting in their lives, and that's why I preach that a lot as well. And then it basically, just everything else that you said was very well put together. I can tell that you've definitely done a lot of research, and you definitely have a lot of this very spiritual tapped in energy. So I can only imagine that whatever you're doing, keep it up, because it's very clear that it's working. It not only appears to be making you very happy, but it's also going to make everybody else happy, because you understand the fundamental of what it means to manifest or manipulate those types of energies. And really what it comes from is yourself. That's what you said, is at the end, is know thyself, right? Understanding like, oh, I need to ground today, oh, I need to meditate today, or whatever the case might be, whatever practice people have. It's understanding yourself to the point where you can maintain yourself in a very healthy way. For example, the first thing that you said is being able to do nothing. I struggled with that. That was actually my biggest weakness. I wanted to do for everybody, put all the weight on my shoulders, put it all on me, and that was draining me, and then that was impacting the way that I was able to help other people around me. So it's a matter of knowing thyself from a very deep soul standpoint, not from an egotistic physical standpoint, and then being able to take care of yourself better than anybody else because you know yourself better than anybody else. And then once you're able to do that, then it bleeds out and impacts everybody around you. So I love everything that you said. It's very clear that you know your stuff. In my opinion, I'm pretty well read on some of this stuff too. So I just wanted to thank you for the time that you gave today. I know that we're going to be running out of time here soon, but is there any way that you could share, maybe you want to plug your social media, you want to plug like your following, or maybe soon after you're done with your shamanistic practices, maybe then you'll have like your own practices that you could open up to people. How can people be more like you? That's that.
Wow.
Why don't you share that? How about that? That'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been sharing my medicine for 2 years. It's all on my website, Briona Jolie. I share a lot of free things on Instagram and YouTube as well, all under the same name. But yeah, everything is shifting because now I'm bringing the shamanic lens to a lot of my work. So that will just all be evolving and upgrading as that soon ends. So if you just continue to follow, you can watch the evolution process
Love it.
in full in front of you.
Love it, love it. Okay,
Mhm.
well, I want to thank you again, Brianna. Thank you so much for doing this podcast with us. Go follow Brianna Jolie. I'm gonna plug all her stuff down below, and go give her a follow. Go give her a like. Feel free to ask her questions. I'm sure. And thank you so much once again. It's been a pleasure having you here and chatting with you. And if you ever wanted to do another podcast, we can talk soon. Cool.
Cool. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, of
Appreciate it.
course. No problem.